book of Matthew, the 26th chapter, and also from the book of Luke, the 22nd chapter. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." "Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same. From the book of Luke. Then seizing him, they led him away and took him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed at a distance. And when some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter sat down with them. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him." But he denied it. "Woman, I don't know him," he said. A little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." "Man, I am not," Peter replied. About an hour later, another asserted, "Certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean." Peter replied, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. So now we're going to go fast forward and give one of the most, in my mind at least, profound examples of God's grace. We're going to walk fast forward. You can find this in John chapter 21, to the Sea of Tiberias, otherwise known as the Sea of Galilee, in an early morning breakfast time. The night before, these fishermen, Peter and the other fishermen, and they were fishermen, had gathered around, and they're trying to figure out just what's going on, what all has happened. Jesus by now has appeared to them 3 times, and more than likely, Peter has been forgiven for his sin, but he's still in Peter. And so, not knowing what else to do, and in frustration, Peter says, I'm going to do what I do best. I'm just going to go fishing. And so he jumps in the boat and starts to go, and the rest say, hey, we're going to go with you. This is what we do. Maybe we can figure something out. And so they go. They fish all night long and nothing is caught. And the next morning, a figure appears on the beach and he says, "Friend, do you have any fish?" And they say, "No." "Well, try the right side." And they throw their nets out. And we know the story. They catch all these fish. And then Jesus is recognized. And for some reason, the scriptures include the words that Peter put on his outer garment and jumped into the water. I don't know how he was fishing without the outer garment, but apparently he was. So they all rushed ashore. And Jesus is there around a campfire. He has a fish on the fire. He said, bring your fish, bring some more fish. And they all get together there. And they're afraid to ask him who he is because they know who he is, but they won't say anything. And I think it's significant that Jesus has invited Peter to the campfire to enjoy some fellowship with his disciples and to be warmed by this fire after being out on the water all night before he addresses Peter's spiritual needs. So they're gathered around there, and then I can see a point in time where Jesus might walk over to Peter or look at him and say, "Hey, Peter, come here a minute. I'd like to have a word with you." And so they get up from the campfire and they move away a little bit from the campfire. And they have this discussion back and forth, one that we're all probably, I would think most of us at least, very familiar with, where Jesus asked Peter 3 different times, "Do you love me?" Peter says, "I do." He says, "Well, then feed my lambs." "Do you love me?" "Lord, you know I love you. Take care of my sheep." "Do you love me?" "Lord, I love you more than anything. Feed my sheep." And in those moments, I believe, Peter is restored he denied knowing Christ has been rebutted and wiped away through his saying, I love you. And not only does Jesus accept the fact that Peter loves him, he says, feed my sheep. Take care of my lambs. Feed my sheep. That doesn't sound familiar to you. How about Matthew, where it says, go and make disciples of all the nations? There's a similarity there. The key issue here is Peter's love for Jesus Christ. And that should be the key issue with us this morning. Do we love Jesus Christ? In spite of his faults and his failures, Peter did indeed love Jesus Christ, and he was never afraid to admit it. We have to know that these other men were listening over Peter's shoulder because all of them had vowed to be loyal to Jesus, and all of them too had fallen away. As I said, Peter had probably already confessed his sin. The scriptures tell us this was the third time that they had seen Jesus Christ, or he had been there 3 times before. And now through God's grace, Peter's ministry is fully restored. And it's an amazing story. All of us have that grace available to us as well. I'm going to bring to you and share with you a video by a couple of guys that are called the Stick Guys. And it illustrates this encounter with Jesus and Peter as I think they're standing away from the campfire. You're going to find a little humor in it, but you'll also find a very strong and powerful message in it as well. So if you would show that video, please.
Grace is God's unmerited favor for us, His crazy love. And the truth is, many times we struggle understanding. If you find yourself struggling to understand God's grace, don't beat yourself up. Even the disciples struggled with understanding grace.
Jesus, is that you? You're alive! I can't believe you're alive! Okay, I was in the boat, and I went to catch any fish, okay? But I heard this voice, and the voice said,
We're waiting
"Cast
for
your nets
Scott."
on the other side." And so I'm thinking, I'm a fisherman, I know what I'm doing, but I'm not catching any fish, you know? And so I throw that net over there, and then I'll gaggle a fish up into that net, and I'm going, this is a total miracle. Who could have done that? I need to know who told me to throw the net to the other side. And boom, I look up, and I mean, there is you. You're looking at me on the seashore, going, it is I, the Lord, and you're alive. I can't believe you're alive. This is awesome. Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on, Peter. Yeah. Do you love me? Yes, I love you. I love you. You're alive. This is so great.
Good, then feed my sheep.
Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on, man. It's here.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you love me?
I love you. Yes. And I'm so sorry about that rooster clucking. I had no idea what that meant, but I do now. I'm better for it, all right? Okay.
Then feed my sheep.
Andrew, I'm smiling, but I'm serious. Come on, get out of the boat. It's him.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you love me?
Jesus. Mere words cannot describe the passion that I have for you. I love you. You know everything. I love you.
Good. Good. Then feed my sheep.
I didn't even know your lifestyle. That is so like you, though. There's something new about you all the time. That's what I love about you.
Peter, do you remember the morning the ladies went to the tomb?
Yeah. We're all in the upper room trying to figure out what to do next. We're dead, you're dead, we're trying to figure all that out, And Mary comes running up, and Mary's like saying, beehive, beehive, beehive. I'm thinking, I'm allergic to bees, like keep them out, you know what I'm saying? But as she kept getting closer, I heard her correctly, she was saying, he's alive, he's alive, he's alive. And we're going, who's alive, who's alive? And she said, she was at the tomb, and the tomb was empty, and she said that there was an angel there, and the angel said, go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay, he is risen. And so, me and John, we hightailed it down there, and if John says he beat me, he's totally lying, all right? I beat him, all right, But we get down there, and I'm looking in that tomb, and it is empty. There's nothing in there, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And John is right there. John is so good at words. He should write a book. He's so good at words. And John said, don't you think, Peter, this is everything. Did it? It's done. Let's go.
Unless you can read that. It's too good to read.
That's where it was.
Make you a deal. If we get the sound going.
Grace is God's unmerited favor for us, His crazy love. And the truth is, many times we struggle understanding it. If you find yourself struggling to understand God's grace, don't beat yourself up. Even the disciples struggled with understanding grace.
Jesus sent you? You're alive. I can't believe you're alive. Okay, I was in the boat and I wasn't catching any fish, okay? But I heard this voice and the voice said, cast your net to the other side. And so I'm thinking, well, I'm a fisherman. I know what I'm doing, but I'm not catching any fish, you know? And so I throw that net over there and then I'll gaggle a fish up into that net and I'm going, this is a total miracle. Who could have done that? I need to know who told me to throw the net to the other side. And boom, I look up and I mean, there's you. You're looking at me on the seashore going, it is I, the Lord, and you're alive. I can't believe you're alive. This is awesome. Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
Yes, I love you. I love you. You're alive. This is so great.
Good, then feed my sheep.
Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on, man. It's him.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
I love you. Yes. And I'm so sorry about that rooster clucking. I had no idea what that meant, but I do now. That's horrible. All right. Okay.
Then feed my sheep.
Andrew, I'm smiling, but I'm serious. Come on, get out of the boat. It's him.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
Jesus, mere words cannot describe the passion that I have for you. I love you. You know everything. I love you.
Good. Good. Then feed my sheep.
I didn't know your livestock. That is so like you, though. There's something new about you all the time. That's what I love about you.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you remember the morning the ladies went to the tomb?
Yeah. We're all in that room trying to figure out what to do next, you know, because we thought you were dead. You know, you were dead, you know. We're trying to figure all that out, you know. And Mary comes running up, and Mary's like saying, beehive, beehive, beehive. And I'm thinking, I'm allergic to bees. Like, keep them out, you know what I'm saying? But as she kept getting closer, I heard her correctly. She was saying, he's alive, he's alive, he's alive. And we're going, who's alive, who's alive? And she said, she was at the tomb, and the tomb was empty, and she said that there was an angel there, and the angel said, go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay, he's risen. And so, me and John, we hightail it down there, and if John says he beat me, he's totally lying, all right? I beat him, all right, you know? When we get down there, and I'm looking at that tomb, and it is empty. There's nothing in there, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And John is right there. John is so good with words. He should write a book. He is so good at words. And John said, don't you get it, Peter? This is everything Jesus said he was going to do. And you did it, and it's done. Let's go. This is so great.
Wait, the angel said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay. He is risen. You've risen. Let's go. This
He
is
said
so-
what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter. Go tell the disciples and Peter. You said my name. Why did you say my name?
Peter, that's grace.
No, I don't deserve that, because that night people kept coming up to me asking me if I belonged to you, if I was with you, and I kept denying you left and right, all right? No, it'll take me my whole life to make up for what I did. It was unforgivable for what I did.
No. What I did on the cross was meant to take what is unforgivable and make it forgivable. That's my grace. It's not about you. It's always about me. That's grace, Peter.
That's grace, Peter. That's grace. And you know what the good news is? That grace that was afforded to Peter is yours and mine as well. That's God's grace poured out on each of us. We too are forgiven. And Jesus reminds us that perhaps it's not just enough to simply love the Lord, as we all do. But he also instructs Peter, and I believe he instructs us, feed my sheep. And later to all the disciples, we hear the Great Commission to go and share his love and to go and make disciples of all